Benjamin Franklin, the great journey of the founding father of the United States. Benjamin Franklin is known as one of the founding fathers of the United States. His portrait is printed on the $100 bill. In addition to founding the country, he is also considered a giant of human history when he demonstrated his outstanding versatility in many fields. Benjamin Franklin's life is a wonderful journey that proves how powerful human passion and determination can be. Benjamin Franklin was born on January 17, 1706, in Boston, Massachusetts, United States. He was the 15th son and also the youngest in a family of 17 brothers. Benjamin Franklin's ancestors lived in England and were not of a famous lineage. His ancestors were blacksmiths and were honest and hard-working people. Only Benjamin's father, Mr. Josiah Franklin, left his homeland early to start a career in America. Benjamin's family was not well off, so his siblings could only pursue their studies for 2 to 3 years before having to find work to help the family. They worked in many different professions such as printers, dyers, and blacksmiths. Benjamin Franklin, on the other hand, learned to read and write early, so his studies lasted longer. Benjamin Franklin's father wanted him to become a pastor in the future. However, when he reached high school, because it was too expensive, Benjamin had to drop out of school to study math and literature at Mr. Brerner's house. After a while, the family's economy became difficult again because the dyeing business was sluggish, so the whole family had to switch to making candles and soap. Benjamin had to study at home to help his father with his work, which was pouring wax into molds, doing odd jobs, or looking after the store for his father. Despite the difficulties, Benjamin loved reading books since he was young. Whenever he came across a book, he would read it with great interest, or he would save up any money he had to buy books to read. Seeing his son's love for books, Mr. Josiah let him study printing, even though his eldest son James was pursuing it today. Thanks to his career in printing, Benjamin read more books. He read all the books that were printed, sometimes staying up all night to finish reading them because he had to return them to customers the next morning. He taught himself many subjects such as algebra, geometry, grammar, logic, physics, and natural sciences. In 1721, his brother James published a newspaper called the New England Courant, which was the second newspaper published in America. At that time, intellectuals often wrote articles and signed them differently because they were afraid that the government would make things difficult for them. Many talented people sent in very good articles, increasing the value of the newspaper. Benjamin Franklin also wanted to write an article, but he was afraid that if he signed his real name, his brother would throw it in the trash, so he took the pseudonym Silence Dogood and waited until night to throw the article through the window of the printing house above. Some friends believed that the article was thrown through the window of James's printing house, and some people thought that it was written by a talented and learned person. No one thought that the author was Benjamin Franklin. Finally, Benjamin Franklin could not keep the secret anymore and had to confess that he was the author of the above articles. From then on, his friends respected him more than before, but his brother James was upset. There were often conflicts between the two brothers. In 1723, the New England Courant published an editorial insulting the government, so James was arrested for a month. James replaced him as the printer. After being released, James was forbidden to publish a newspaper, so James had to ask Benjamin to be the editor of this newspaper because the law at that time did not allow a worker to be responsible for such a big job. So James had to cancel the contract that forced the donor to work with him before. Shortly after, the two brothers had a fierce conflict that caused Benjamin to leave home and go to New York. This was the place with the most printers and was closest to Boston. Benjamin Franklin had to sell some of his books to get money for the trip when he was only 17 years old. When he arrived in New York, he could not find a job, but thanks to someone's introduction, he went to Philadelphia, 160 kilometers from New York. This was the largest colony in the American colonies. It was also here that Benjamin met Derrick, who would later become his wife. In Philadelphia, Benjamin found a job at Sam Alzheimer's printing house. At the age of 21, Benjamin Franklin founded the Junto Club for members to take turns giving lectures on political ethics and science. At first, the club consisted of 7 to 8 members who loved reading and met on Friday to discuss the issues raised in the previous week. Thanks to this discussion, the members all improved in speaking and research. In addition, every 3 months, each member had to write a thesis on any issue. Thanks to this way of operating, the Junto Club was very famous in the city at that time. At the age of 22, Benjamin Franklin stopped working for Sam Alzheimer and opened his own printing house with Hurt Mauritius. At that time, paper money was scarce, and people were worried that if they printed more, the currency would lose value, and if they didn't print, the economy would not develop. Benjamin Franklin then discussed this with the Junto members and printed a book entitled The Nature and Necessity of Paper Money. This action made the city parliament decide to print more money, and they assigned the job to Benjamin's, thanks to which his printing house had more work. Benjamin Franklin showed that when researching, there needed to be many books and each person only had a small number. So the Junto members brought their books together and placed them in one place so that one person could read the other's books and the research would become easier. This was very beneficial but also had some inconveniences, such as everyone required others to keep their books carefully. So a year later, the Junto had to disband this bookcase. Benjamin Franklin thought of establishing a public library to lend books with clear regulations. The club had about 100 members, and the money contributed by the members was used to buy books from England. The library founded by Benjamin Franklin was also the first library in North America. Thanks to the library, the people of Philadelphia at that time had a higher cultural level than the people of the neighboring regions. At the age of 26, Benjamin Franklin realized that it was necessary to popularize good ideas, so he immediately compiled and published an almanac called Poor Richard's Almanac. In this book, noble and beneficial ideas were turned into proverbs for readers to remember more easily. Nowadays, these proverbs are still popular, such as, "Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise." The book was warmly received by readers, and 10,000 copies were published in 25 years. It was truly a rare event at that time. In addition to the almanac, Benjamin Franklin also compiled a book on the way to wealth. The book, The Way to Wealth, also has a special economic value. Also at the age of 26, Benjamin Franklin founded the Philadelphia newspaper. American historians believe that Benjamin was the first editor in America to publish sketches and map news guides on the pages of newspapers. Thanks to his newspaper, Benjamin Franklin presented to the people many projects to improve public services. The Philadelphia newspaper existed from 1729 to 1766. During his time as the owner of the daily newspaper, Benjamin Franklin felt the need to learn more foreign languages to better understand other peoples, so he immediately began to learn French, and soon after he spoke fluently and read books in this language easily. After learning French, he continued to learn Italian, and shortly after, the Spanish University was established and he also became fluent in this language. At the age of 30, thanks to his own understanding and the trust of the people, Benjamin Franklin was elected Secretary of the Pennsylvania Congress. The city of Philadelphia was growing more and more but did not have a fire department. Benjamin Franklin immediately established this volunteer army, and in the same year, Benjamin was nominated as Postmaster of Villarreal. His effective work attracted the attention of the British government, so later in 1753, he became Deputy Postmaster General of the North American colony. Besides, Benjamin Franklin also paid attention to the problem of improving commonly used tools. At the age of 36, He invented a smokeless fireplace that was twice as hot as the roof, but used a quarter of the amount of firewood. His invention was popular in the city because it was very scientific and convenient. The government wanted to grant him a patent, but he refused and said, "I can use other people's inventions, so I am happy to see my invention help people around me." The family economy gradually became better at the age of 40. Benjamin Franklin began to pay more attention to science at that time. America received books and newspapers providing experimental equipment on electricity from England. When the Philosophical Society he founded asked him to do the experiments as described, he not only did it, but also discovered many new things. At the age of 42, Benjamin Franklin explained the distribution of electric charge at Chi Leyde. The following year, he made a table of comments on the common characteristics between electricity and lightning. Today, people still mention his experiment on lightning with an axe. Benjamin said that he still believed that the discovery from Chi Leyde was like a lightning strike with a much smaller intensity. At the age of 44, after understanding thunder and lightning, Benjamin Franklin invented the lightning rod. He built one on the roof of his house and then improved it further. Franklin popularized this invention by posting it in his calendar. This year, Benjamin was elected to the Philadelphia legislature. He also invented bifocals, which combined reading glasses and distance glasses into one frame. He also noticed that diseases were common in poorly ventilated rooms, and he also taught people how to improve acidic soil with lime powder. In the spring of 1754, the Anglo-French War broke out in America. Benjamin Franklin believed that the North American colonies should unite to fight the French and the harassment of the Indians. He published a famous humorous picture called "Join or Die" in his newspaper. This picture showed a snake cut into many pieces to symbolize the North American colonies. Benjamin Franklin proposed the federal program called Plan of Union at the Colonial Congress held in Albany, New York. According to this plan, the 13 colonies should join together to form one government. The general federal program contained ideas that would later be included in the United States Constitution. The delegates at the Albany Convention agreed to Franklin's program, but the colonies did not ratify it. The war with France had cost Britain a lot of money. Britain imposed additional costs on the colonies, and all land was taxed. The Philadelphia Congress sent Franklin to England in 1757 to London. When his request for tax abolition failed, he proposed that unmeasured land be exempted from taxation. His proposal on the basis of balance was approved. Benjamin Franklin served in England as an unofficial ambassador and spokesperson for the American continent. In 1760, when the French and Indian War ended, there was a great debate from England. France defeated and was willing to cede to England either a province of Canada or Waterloo Island in the West Indies. At the height of the debate, Benjamin Franklin published a pamphlet comparing the boundless future of Canada with the insignificance of Waterloo Island. And historians believe that it was under the influence of this pamphlet that England chose Canada. In the summer of 1762, Benjamin Franklin returned to North America. He was enthusiastically welcomed and elected to the Philadelphia Parliament, and the following year, he went to England to fight for the signing of the Post Office Act. On February 13, 1766, Franklin appeared before the British House of Commons to answer 174 questions related to taxation and lack of representation. His knowledge of taxation matters amazed everyone, and his reputation spread throughout Europe. The Stamp Act was later repealed, largely due to Franklin's efforts. As political relations between the colonies and the British project deteriorated, Benjamin Franklin still wanted the American colonies to remain within the British Empire if the rights of the colonists were respected and protected. He was willing to use his fortune to compensate for the tea discovered in Boston if the British government abolished the unfair tea tax. But the British ignored his request, so on March 21, 1775, Franklin sailed back to America. Franklin arrived in Philadelphia in May 1775, about 2 weeks after the war had begun. The next day, the people of Philadelphia elected him as a delegate to serve in the Second Continental Congress. Benjamin Franklin rarely spoke about Congress, but he was one of its most active and influential delegates. He proposed a federal program that contained the basic ideas for the Articles of North American Confederation. In 1776, Benjamin Franklin was nominated with Thomas Jefferson and John Adams to draft the Declaration of Independence, and he was also one of the signatories of this important document. At that time, the war with the British had not yet brought good results, and the Congress thought that an alliance with France could lead to victory, so they nominated Franklin as one of the 3 commissioners representing the United States in France. At the end of 1776, at the age of 70, Benjamin Franklin took on the most important task of his life. He arrived in France and was warmly welcomed by the French people, who admired him for his kindness, simple gestures, wise mind, and wise words, as well as his polite treatment of both the nobility and the common people. Crowds followed him on the streets. Poets wrote songs praising him. His portrait and statue were placed in many places. Although he had feelings for Benjamin Franklin, the French government at that time was still very hesitant to sign the Treaty of Alliance and the North American colonies because it would lead to a war between France and England. However, with his tact, intelligence, and patience, Franklin gradually won the trust of France, and finally his luck came when the British Army under General John Bound surrendered at Saratoga. The victory of the Americans led to the signing of the Treaty of Alliance on February 6, 1778, after which Franklin arranged for the transportation of French officers and soldiers and guns from North America. Franklin also borrowed money and asked for money to be donated to the United States. Many people believe that without Benjamin Franklin, the Americans would not have won independence. At the age of 80, Benjamin Franklin was still active at that time. The ships traveling from Farmer of England to America took 2 weeks, longer if not going by the route of London Lost Island, the depths. I don't know why many people asked for help from Benjamin Franklin. He met with the captains and learned that there was a current flowing from below that people did not know much about. That was the Gulf Stream. Benjamin Franklin immediately studied this current and advised that ships should take advantage of the current to make the journey faster. In 1787, Pennsylvania nominated Benjamin Franklin, then 81 years old, to the Constitutional Convention. The delegates met in Independence Hall to draft the United States Constitution. At this time, Franklin was the oldest delegate of the convention. Poor health and old age did not allow him to actively participate in the activities, but his wisdom and understanding helped the convention proceed. Benjamin Franklin settled the debates on the rights of delegation in Congress between the large and small states of the United States. His compromise led to the establishment of a bicameral Congress. Franklin's participation in the Constitutional Convention was his last public service, and he was delighted to see George Washington inaugurated as the first president of the United States. He hoped that the example of the United States of North America could lead to another United States in Europe. Benjamin Franklin died in Philadelphia on the night of April 17, 1790, of pneumonia. At the age of 84, about 20,000 people attended his funeral. He was buried in the Church of the Redeemer Cemetery in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, next to his wife Deborah Reed, who died in 1774. Thank you for watching the video on the Mind Creates Form channel. Don't forget to click the subscribe button below and watch more new videos to support us.